Using giftedness for harm. Hi, friends. This is a very serious episode and one that's been on my heart for a while. We talk a lot in the gifted and bright and talented community with all of us about support and wonder and goodness and doing all the things that are important for us to thrive. And all of it is vital. And it's vital because when giftedness is not addressed in a healthy manner, it can cause a lot of harm to people and to the society. And there's a big consequence that we're paying in our culture for the gifted part of us not being awakened, honored, cherished, taught what to do, the right thing, right? Inner resources. So I want to talk a little bit about it. It's very emotional to me because I have dedicated the last 45 years of my life, and probably before that, in helping people, including myself, not suffer anymore, right? Or suffer less. And so one of the first things I want to talk about is that just because someone's gifted or talented or smart, it doesn't mean that they have no problems. It doesn't mean that everything's just peachy keen all the time. You know, you've heard the phrase, you're too smart for your britches. Well, yeah, we are too smart for our britches. And some gifted people have a hard time tying their shoes. You know, I have a hard time following after myself and completing things. You know, like I was sewing on a project the other day and I was pulling out all this fabric and then I left it all there. And so I went back in the sewing room and I'm like, what happened here? It looks like a tornado. And I'm like, oh yeah, I was looking for something. Gifted comes out in all kinds of ways. And the assumption of popular society and a lot of gifted people is that, well, if you're smart, you got a leg up. I'm here to tell you that sometimes that means the leg is not up, that it's a leg down and it's more difficult. I've had people over the years say, oh, I wish I could be in your brain. I'm like, no, you don't. It's very tricky in here. There's a lot going on, a lot of intensity, a lot of sensitivity, 6 or 7 trains of thought going on at once. And it's not easy. So giftedness can be used to cause harm when somebody is disconnected from who they are and they get into anger, blame, shame mode, and they start to hold everyone else responsible for what's going on with them. Or they hold everyone else responsible for what's going on in the country or the world or their city or their family. The truth is, I kind of blame it on Aristotle, actually, because, Aristotle disagreed with Plato, right? Where Plato said the answers are within us in the forms and all that. And then Aristotle said, no, it's nature, it's outside of us. And I think that's where Western society took the wrong left turn off the cliff. So we're now in a society that says we're disconnected and you can't trust your own thinking, and you certainly can't trust anyone else because it's not safe. It's not psychologically safe, separate from physical safety, right? We're not psychologically safe unless we create it for ourselves. Well, so then what happens? What happens is then you, the gifted person, becomes prey for somebody who wants to control and manipulate you. And then you're easily controlled and manipulated. And here's how they do it. They twist things around, which is a form of gaslighting, and then get you to create a level of self-doubt. The moment you start doubting yourself, like, is that really true? Did I really think that? Do I remember it that way? That kind of stuff. The moment you start doubting yourself, boom, there's that opening. And in that opening, you can be controlled, manipulated, and basically take an emotional hostage and not even know what's happened to you. So then your giftedness can be used for harm. And the person who's doing that, or the group who's doing that, are gifted, creating the harm. And so not all gifted people use their talents and gifts for the good. And I believe that the reason why that is because people are taught to be disconnected And people can learn very early in this culture that they can control and manipulate people for their own fame, greed, power, fill in the blank. And so therefore, I can control and manipulate others. Like if you think of cults and things like that, the target audience or the targets of any cult is to grab the gifted, smart people. And the way you do that is create doubt or question, or are they worthy, or can they do it? And the moment that person comes out of their sovereignty of knowing who they are, they expose themselves to a vulnerability that could, not always, but could create that opening for a problem. And then now harm is happening. I have helped many twice exceptional gifted people debrief and heal from the wounds of being either all the way drawn into or about to be drawn into a cult of different kinds. Now, cult means that I tell you how you think and what you do. If somebody is telling you this is how you think, pointing fingers, and it has to be this certain way, or you don't belong, that's a cult. So it's not just religious. People say, oh, that's a religious cult. Well, it's not necessarily. And that's where it takes critical thinking, because not all cults are religious and not all religions are cults. So we have to get away from the global sweeping comments and realize that somebody can control you one-on-one. I've had it happen to me. I've had it happen to me in my professional career, actually, by other professionals in the same setting. I would go in to do group, I'd come out a couple hours later and the whole energy, the whole place was different. And I would wonder what was going on. Well, what emerged later was that there was other person and sometimes people who were creating that self-doubt to try to control me. I was just doing my job. But those people, it's particularly a couple of them, right, were using their giftedness for harm, intentionally trying to control and manipulate me. So nobody is immune and nobody gets a free pass. We have to pay attention. And once I started feeling all the difference, like, wait a second, why am I doubting myself? Why am I feeling agitated? Why am I getting angry when I'm not an angry person? What's up with that? And then I started seeing, and then I started realizing. And then I had support. I called people I knew who would know what to do. And I got myself out of the situation, but I had to be debriefed after the situation. I had to receive support after the situation because of the damage that was done by another gifted person and people. And so it can happen to anybody at any time, in any part of our world. Gifted people aren't all saints. And, there was research that happened a while back that said that all the gang leaders that are in prison test gifted. Well, of course, because they can control people. They can get what they want. They know how to maneuver and manipulate whatever they need to get done. So of course they're gifted, right? Sarcastic humor, that's a sign of giftedness. Only a smart person can put those two things together. So not all gifted people use their exceptionalities for the good. And so I'm very active in the gifted world, and I really support people to use it for the good. And there's a lot of situations where that's not exactly happening. And I think it's time we talk about the fact that when somebody is not supported in a healthy manner to really bring out the goodness in them, that it can go awry. Something can happen that doesn't work very well. I think a lot of the violence in this culture and blame has to do with smart, gifted, highly sensitive people feeling lost and they don't know what to do. And then they just act up or act out or blow up, like suicide or blowing out. Like that's the same thing. That's rage, right? And it comes from high levels of inner pain and disconnection and angst, which is common for gifted people. So it's not peaches and cream, or unicorns and rainbows, whatever it is, to live in a gifted body and world experience. We've come in with a higher calling, and not higher as in better than, but like a different kind of calling than what's common. So you're here to awaken, you're here to shake the tree, you're here to bring your creativity. That's what you're here to do, is to create something amazing and beautiful and awesome. And you can only do that when you tell yourself the truth and you dial within and you're connected inside of you. So I blame it on Aristotle, who said the answers are outside of us, because the answers are inside of us. And when gifted people use their giftedness for harm, it's not pretty. And I want to call this out in a format where I want to say, I see you. I see you. I see you when you struggle. I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're not saying. Right? I get it. And today can be the day that you take responsibility for yourself. Today can be the day that you tell yourself the truth. Today can be the day you begin to wake up from the cultural trance that just because you're gifted, life should be easy, and now you're beating yourself up because it's hard. Today is the day we can let some of those lies be challenged so we can tell the truth. Because that's where our freedom is. That is where the freedom is. There are gifted people who are gaslighting other people, which means creating doubt and then blaming the person when they act up. There are gifted people out there in public arenas that are angry and blaming and litigious, causing all kinds of trouble and agitating things. That's a sign of a gifted person who is very off base, who's gone awry, right? They're using their ability to control and manipulate others for their own selfish gain, while the others believe it to be in their interest, but it's not in their interest. Okay, does that make sense? So I see it all the time. I see it all the time in the professional world, where people call me. I get calls all the time. Oh, I want you to write a chapter in my book, or I want you to do this and do that, as if it's my idea. And then they want me to pay to be in their book. And then they want to claim all the credit for the book that I did the work on. And I said, well, my intellectual property, that's not how I roll, right? So that's a gifted person using fame and the want of other people to be in the group, right? And wanting to have other people's energy and influence for their own gain. I think that causes harm in the long run, right? So there's so many different ways. And then there's cult leaders, right? And there's gang leaders. And then it happens in the workplace a lot, where a gifted manager will outthink maybe, or be able to maneuver to create doubt in other people so they can control and manipulate them. I worked at a company years ago. In fact, it was during this time that my mother was dying, and she was very ill. And so I worked outside of the helping profession so I wouldn't have to, because I was emotionally spent. And I was in a situation where the gifted people who owned the company were controlling and manipulating and harming everyone who worked there in different ways. Everyone. Yeah. And they're prominent people in the community, smiling on cue and looking all good. But when you're in that situation where there is violence, verbal violence and craziness, and being told you're not good enough and all those things, there's a way to correct behavior, get somebody to do what you want to without harming them. So gifted people are not all innocent. It's not all mansy pansy. Now, what I want to talk about too, though, here is, what do you do? How do we correct this? Because I don't like the fact that all the gang leaders in prison are gifted, and I don't like the fact that so many gifted people are using their giftedness to harm others, which also harms them and harms our culture, harms our world. I don't like that. And I think those of us who are awake and gifted people who are paying attention here, it's time for us to start taking a stand and talking about and confronting the fact that we are doing the work we're doing, especially with children, to teach critical thinking, to teach executive functioning, to fill in the holes where parenting and the gaps of the culture are making it so that people can go awry. We're working very hard to offset a trajectory that has been set a long time ago that's a problem. And so part of it is too that um, when I was younger, my mom used to always say, if you're bored, you have no inner resources. I didn't know what it meant. I was 4 or 5. My brother had more of an issue with that than me, but here's what happened. I learned to develop inner resources. She also said, you don't have to have all the answers to everything, honey. You just have to know where to get them or who can help get you there. So she was teaching me how to be a gifted person in the world with inner resources, with a moral compass, and with the critical thinking skills to be a responsible adult. And I think a lot of people miss that because they think gifted people automatically know those things, but we don't. Human beings are the only species where we have to learn everything. So if somebody's not intentionally teaching the children these things, they don't know. And then they become adults and then they learn they can manipulate and cause harm. I've worked with plenty of families where their gifted kids just, got into their early 20s in college and it wasn't a pretty sight. It wasn't a pretty sight. And so now we're catching up. We're trying to help these kids, these younger people get it. So are you teaching critical thinking really? Are you role modeling how to use your inner resources? Because if you're bored, it means you have no inner resources. So why don't you take all the batteries and screen time away in your family for a day? Are you bored? If anyone gets bored, then we have some work to do on how to develop and how to bring forward our inner resources. Just because the culture is addicted to it doesn't mean you have to be. It's time we take a stand for ourselves and for the people who we love around us. So when giftedness is used for harm, then what happens is everyone loses. And people like me and all the other people out here supporting gifted and twice exceptional people, we get tired and we get burned out because sometimes it feels like we're throwing our optimism and our effort and our work into black holes because there's a lot of it and it can get really daunting. So if every single one of us starts to just go within and be more honest, and if every single one of us opens our mind up and starts to really develop these inner skills and teach them and role model them and talk about them, then adults can learn them too. It's not just for the children, it's for everybody. If you didn't learn it when you were little, you can learn it now. But it's time that we start doing that. We start being open-minded instead of pointing the finger of blame. It's not your mom's fault, your dad's fault. It's not the government's fault. It's nobody's fault, and nobody is going to save you except you. So quit looking outside of yourself for the answers. The answers are inside. Connection is the correction. Connection within to your essence first, then outside. That's the way we're built. We can't get around it. We live in a culture that's been trying to get around it for centuries. We can't get around it. It's how we're built. And what's happened is a lot of gifted people have begun to take that knowledge and used it to control and manipulate through social media, through governments, through business, through poisoning food. We can go on. You all know. I don't need to name it. And if you want to be happy and healthy and whole and you want to feel your amazing self, it's time you told yourself the truth. Get connected on the inside and move out from there. And if you need a reminder of how to get connected on the inside, message me. I'll help you. There's lots of people that can show you the way. So don't use your giftedness for harm, and understand that not all gifted people have pure motives. Check your motives. Do the right thing. Listen to your soul. It's important. It's very important. And so, till the next episode, if someone gets me, tell yourself the truth. Be open-minded that just maybe your A game needs a little polishing up. And then be willing to take action in the direction of the highest good for all concerned. Until the next time I see you, be well.